It wasn't long ago when a small electric car would cost you well over £30,000. But the last year or so has seen a flurry of affordable EVs arrive on the market at closer to or even under £20,000. The Leapmotor T03 is the latest of them, and it's here to take on the likes of the Dacia Spring, with prices from under £16,000 for an official range of 165 miles. The who, what and where, I hear you ask? Yes, well that's understandable because Leapmotor, it is new to the UK and Europe. It is a Chinese tech brand. It's been around since 2015 and it is not new to selling cars. They've sold hundreds of thousands of cars in China. They are, however, new to us, and they have teamed up with, well, Stellantis has bought out 51% of Leapmotor's European outfit. So that has got a controlling stake. And it's now in the UK. They're going to have 60 dealerships in the UK by the end of the year. They've already got 44. And because it's owned by Stellantis, which is the big car manufacturer that merged Fiat, Citroën, Peugeot, all of that lot. So they're a big, big company, and you've got the backing of all of their service dealerships and that kind of thing as well, which is reassuring when you're buying a completely unknown car. You also get a lot of kit for that money. Sunroof, standard. Alloy wheels, standard. LED lights at the front and back, standard. Big touchscreen with reversing camera, standard. You've got to admit, that is pretty good value, especially when you think that you can also get this for £199 a month with a £199 deposit, 0% interest, so, you know, monthly finance, it's really cheap. And it looks, well, I mean, let's face it, it looks quite cheap, doesn't it, too? But not bad. Kind of like a toy car scaled up. There's something about it that just looks sort of, I don't know, I think it looks all right from the back, actually. It's the front, it's those headlights and the front grille and that kind of thing. Something about it looks a bit kind of cartoonish and a bit odd. But I do like the colour, and like I said, great value for money. And it is a city car, isn't it? You know, that's kind of the idea. So maybe you won't mind the fact that the boot isn't great, because it's only 210 litres, and this aperture's tiny, really tiny. This is only 3.6 metres long, this car. So you're talking about quite considerably shorter than a Citroën EC3, which is 4 metres long. This is definitely Dacia Spring territory. This is what we're looking at. And fine, it's cheap. That's what you're after. It does the job. You know, you're going to get a couple of bags in there. That's fine. Single piece, folding seat. It's cheap, but it does the job, doesn't it? I don't actually mind the boot. It's not great, let's face it, but it's all right. So, 5 doors as standard. Very nice. You can only get 4 people in here though, so just a 2-person rear bench. Don't think that's a problem in this class of car really, and not terrible in terms of rear space. So this is my driving position, and I can sit in the back here. It's okay, you know, for what it is. I'm all for cars that have quite specific purposes. This is a cheap city car. Doesn't need to be massively spacious or massively luxurious. It's not, but it's not bad. It's all right. Up front, it is impressive that every T03 gets a 10-inch touchscreen with nav, Bluetooth media streaming, digital radio and more. But it is disappointing that there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. That could be a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of drivers who value proper phone integration. Yes, it is annoying that you don't get any physical climate controls. You have to change the climate in the screen. You know, I don't think that's going to be as annoying as not having Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Even so, again, and I know I've already said this quite a few times with the T03, it's not bad for the money, is it? I mean, get a nice touchscreen, you've got your nav, you've got your, you know, Bluetooth, Amazon Music apparently. Nice, we like that. It does the job. Again, I don't mind it. To an extent, and this is probably more personal preference, I would sort of almost rather not have a touchscreen at all and just have a, you know, a sort of cradle where you can put your phone, because I just think it's going to age the car far less in many years to come. But especially I think that's fine on little cheap cars like this. But that is personal preference, and I think having the touchscreen, most people are going to love that. So that's all good. Quality? Again, yeah, it's pretty good. Is it better than a Spring? I think it's definitely as good as, I have to say. No reach adjustment on the steering wheel, so only goes up and down and not by much. So if you're not, you know, quite average size like me, you might want to check that you can get comfortable in here. You sit quite high up, but there is quite a lot of headroom, and you do get height adjustment, so you can sit even higher up if you want to. But that's pretty much it. You can go up, down, and then the back moves. And again, you wouldn't really expect much else from a car like this, would you? Cup holder, little place to put your phone, USB charging points. Do you know what? It's got everything you need, really, hasn't it? It's even got a surprisingly huge glove box. We're all good. Not much to complain about. As for charging, well, the T03 isn't great on that front. It'll charge at up to 48 kilowatts using the CCS socket in its nose, which, let's face it, is not that fast. But it's still a touch faster than the Spring, and because the 37.3 kilowatt hour LFP battery is quite small capacity, you can still manage a 10 to 80% charge in under 40 minutes. Or a charge at home will take around 5 to 6 hours. So, before I start talking to you about how the Leap T03 drives, I want to talk to you about the noises it makes. So I'm doing just under 20 miles an hour. All EVs have to have a pedestrian warning sound at lower speeds these days. And the Leap's is particularly audible inside the car. And it's very responsive to the throttle input. So you end up, it's like you're sort of driving a theremin. It's kind of just going, oop, ooh, oop, oop, ooh. And in the end, if you're following somebody in a T03 and they don't want to go over 20 miles an hour, it's because they're trying to play the final bars of the Star Trek theme tune on the throttle. So it's peculiarly entertaining and weird. I don't know if the mic's really picking up that noise. But there you go, it makes a fantastic noise. Also, possibly the loudest electric parking brake I've ever heard. So there's all kinds of weird and wonderful noises this car makes, especially, you know, if you get the speed alert warning and that kind of makes a Ring doorbell thing, and then there's something else that the driver attention assist kind of goes, you know, at you. So it's just all these mad bing bong, really weird noises going on in the Leapmotor T03. But you can turn a lot of them off, and that, you know, that's fine. That's like most modern cars, but the Leaps are particularly noticeable. So we're talking about a mighty 94 brake horsepower motor, which isn't too bad when you think that this car weighs usefully less than 1.2 tonnes, so it's pretty lightweight. And that means 0 to 62 in 12.7 seconds, which by the Dacia Spring standards, well, that's pretty good actually, because you get substantially less power than that in the Spring that you'd be looking at for the same price as this. Good for you, Leapmotor. And do you know what, on the road, well, it doesn't feel fast, of course it doesn't, because it's not, but it feels fine. Very much a theme with this car, isn't it? It feels fine for the money. Do you know what, I'm going to say, I think it does feel a bit more confident on the road than the Spring. I think it's pretty decent in terms of the acceleration on the road, so you feel more than confident enough. Even sort of suburban country roads like this, you know, you're not bothered at all. There is a lot of lean in corners. The steering's quite light. You've got 3 drive modes, and steering's very light in the normal mode. I mean, you know, there's not really any sense of it being connected to the front wheels at all. But yeah, the car vaguely goes in the direction you point it, so that's kind of that's okay. It's not brilliant. But again, it does the job. You sort of get in and it's quite easy to drive. I think if I have my biggest complaint really about the way it drives is that the brake regen, you can only control it on the screen with the drive modes. So if you go for eco, you get the heavier brake regen, that kind of thing. But there's no one pedal mode, and even changing the drive modes, the difference in that regen is barely noticeable. It's not great. Because I think for a car that's going to be in town, suburbs and all that kind of thing, the brake regen, having control of it and having a one pedal mode and being able to vary it easily, like you can in a Hyundai and a Kia EV on the steering wheel, I think that makes a big difference. So it's a shame that Leapmotor doesn't have that. But hey, again, in the context of the very, very limited electric cars that you can get for, you know, under £16,000, I think the Leapmotor feels well equipped, pretty confident, and actually, like I said, well, it does the job just fine. As for the range, well, we saw around 120 miles, slightly over, despite it being cold weather and faster driving. So in the summer and slower roads, well, we would expect to see more like 150 to 160 miles to a charge. It would be remiss of us not to mention safety on the T03. It has not yet been crash tested by Euro NCAP. It does get the safety assistance systems that by law it must have, including autonomous emergency braking, speed limit warning, lane keep assist, and various other systems that will help to keep you safe on the road. However, without those crash test results, it's very difficult for us to comment on what the Leapmotor might be like in an accident. So, should you buy a Leapmotor T03 if you're after budget, easygoing, practical city transport. Well, do you know what? It's a tough one because even though I've sat there and chatted to the product manager, I know all about the car, I know the people behind the company, all of that, I'm still a bit loath to say, yeah, go for it, because it's new, isn't it? And that's always a bit scary. But 199 quid a month on a 4-year contract, and it's got a 4-year warranty, 60,000 mile limit though, but 4 years. I can see why you would, because it's really not that bad. Throughout this whole video, I've been going, it's all right. And that is pretty much what this is like. It's all right. Should you buy it over a spring? Do you know what? In some ways, I think because the kit you get, it's actually slightly better than the spring. But Dacia's a known brand, isn't it? So I can also see why you'd do that instead. At the end of the day, I'm quite glad that the Leapmotor's here, because I think that having really affordable electric transport like this, straightforward, no nonsense, is actually quite important. And I think they actually will do quite well with this. You've got to take a bit of a punt on an unknown brand. But at that money, well, like I said, it's all right. And I can see why you would. Don't forget to head to cargurus.co.uk for a whole host of fantastic used cars, loads of great electric options out there. And you know what to do. I've told you this loads of times. Like, subscribe, you know, ring the little bell, all of that.